reviewed again, and then it went to the director. It was a bit of a more protracted process, but it's going directly to the director for appeal. And I believe the appeals that we've had so far for under this process, I think most of the appeals have been done via telephone. So certainly you have that option. That's actually been something that's been utilized, I think, by everyone who appealed this fiscal year. It could also be done in person. But certainly for expediency, it might be, just better to request an over-the-phone appeal. If the director upholds the denial of the good faith efforts, then the next step for appeal is actually the legal department. So the legal department contract section is actually the final layer of review in this appeals process. So our office, the Office of Business Opportunity, will facilitate that appeal with the legal department. So again, you'll reach out to the director's office via the email that's here to request a second layer of review by the legal department, and we'll facilitate that review. And so again, the decision by the legal department is the final determination by the City of Houston regarding your pre-bid good faith efforts request. You'll be provided with a written determination in each instance when the director, we have that first layer of review by the director, she'll provide you with a letter summarizing the reason why the denial is upheld, or, she'll reverse it. The legal department, will do the same as well. I just want to emphasize that failure to submit Forms 470, 471, and 472 results in a waiver of your right to appeal. There's nothing to appeal then. So if you fail to submit those forms, you don't have a right to actually challenge a determination. Now, and Morris will actually talk about this when he goes through the post-award good faith efforts process, but there is a challenge, there is a process in place for challenging a final rating on a contract as well once you receive a letter with my signature and Morris's signature about that determination, but he'll walk you through that. And so I invite Morris to come forward and talk about post-award good faith efforts.
Good morning, can you hear me? All right, I'm Morris Scott, I'm with the Office of Business Opportunity, I'm the Contract Compliance Manager, and I think I have we introduced my team earlier. I think we have one other person from my team that showed up. Ashley, wave your hand. Ashley Thompson. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about post-good faith efforts. Post-good faith efforts. So why do we have good faith efforts? Good faith efforts are really designed so that if you are unable to meet the goal, here is your opportunity to present something to the city to say, please evaluate my efforts to see if my efforts are sufficient in order to get a satisfactory rating on the contract. So if you look at our script here, at our slides here, it talks about if you fail to achieve the good faith effort, if you fail to achieve the goal on a project, you can submit your good faith efforts in lieu of that. What happens when you submit your good faith efforts? We meaning the contract compliance officers that are managing your contract, actually evaluate those efforts, and then we make a recommendation to the assistant director on whether or not we feel your efforts were sufficient to get a satisfactory rating, even though you did not meet the goal that was placed on the contract. Just like up front, just like what Monica and LaTanya talked about up front about good faith efforts in that you're documenting your efforts to meet the goal, things you have to do in order to prove to us that you were sincerely interested in trying to meet the goal. Our process is the same. The good faith efforts policy for construction contracts is outlined in document 808, which is included in all your construction contracts. And we also have our policy online, so you can always go online and read it. And then I just want to remind you, because we hear this all the time, we took your certified firms and we use your certified firms, and now you're not giving us credit for using your certified firms. Just because the firm is certified does not necessarily mean that you're going to get credit, because if they are working outside of an area that they are certified to work in, we're not going to be allowing credit for those dollars towards the goal. Okay? And I see some eyes rolling, but we will be glad to answer questions at the end of the presentation, so we'll keep moving. Okay. Good faith efforts. Oh, I'm sorry, I also have another compliance officer here with me, Donald Black. He's over in the back. I didn't see him, but wave your hand, Donald. He's another person on our team that actually helps us in the evaluation efforts. So we talked a lot about your good faith efforts post-award. Here's what we're only dealing with now what happens when the contract ends. So Monica and LaTanya talked a lot about what happens before you're awarded the contract. We're specifically dealing with after the contract has been awarded to your company, and now all the work has been completed, and now we want to see if your efforts are deemed sufficient so that we can award you a satisfactory rating, even though you didn't get the MWBE goal that we were looking for. So, and an example would be if we're asking for an 18% MWBE goal, and you come in at the end of the contract after we've paid all the money to the prime, you come in at 15%, A plus B means if it was an 18% goal and you did 15%, without good faith efforts, you didn't make it, you failed. But with good faith efforts, it allows you to meet that. It allows you to take your 15% that you obtained on the contract, and it allows you to submit that 15% along with all of your efforts and documentation of what you did to try to find a participation for us to consider in meeting the goal. What are some of the things you can do as a company to show us your good faith efforts? Number one, designate somebody within your company who will be your MWBE liaison. That'll be the person that will be responsible for trying to make sure that your company is doing everything to meet the MWBE goal, to document everything that's happening on the contract, making sure that they correspond back to us, make sure they provide an up-to-date utilization schedule. And everybody knows that a utilization schedule is really just a projection of what you believe you're going to spend with those goal credit subs throughout the life of the project in order to get to the goal. So we're looking for you to provide an updated utilization schedule. We're also looking for you to provide prompt responses to the system, meaning we want you to report what you're paying those subs in a timely manner so that we know, we can kind of track how you're meeting the goal as well. The utilization schedule basically tracks your projected spend. The reporting of the payments in the B2G system reports what you're actually spending with the subs. And so that gives us a better way to measure what you're actually paying the subs versus what we're paying you. So we know how you're performing as far as meeting the goal. There are some things that we're looking for you to do, some other things we're looking for you to do, like genuinely attempt to resolve disputes with your certified firms. So I'm not going to tell you how many times I hear we told the certified firm that we need them to start work on tomorrow. They said they can't start until Friday, which is what, 2 or 3 days away. And so we're going to kick them off the contract because they're not ready to work. They're not ready to start the project when we say they needed to start. Will those 2 or 3 days really significantly impact your ability to use that sub? And that's what we're talking about. Are you genuinely interested in trying to resolve disputes with your subs? Also, if there are disputes with your subs, we try to do mediation between you and the sub to try to resolve the issues. And we look at whether or not you are willing to come in and sit down and talk to us and try to resolve those issues with the subs so that we can move forward and make decisions and that don't impact you later on. We also look to see if you actually request a deviation when you add, on your project, you tell us who your gold credit subs are, but you also use other subcontractors on this project because mostly it's not just the MWBs working on the project, you're using other subcontractors. Some of those subcontractors you use on the project, they're actually certified with the city. And so one of the things that we're looking for you and your company to do is, if you know you're using other gold credit subs on the project for work other than what you have designated for the MBE subs, request a deviation so that you can get credit for the dollars you spend with those certified gold credit subs. And as long as you're not taking work away from the subs that are originally listed, you're fine. That'll help you in the end to improve upon your percentages. We're looking for you to promptly respond to emails, phone calls, questions from us about your MBE participation. You know, we're looking at the project, we're looking at it kind of real time, in that when we pay you, you pay your subs. We're looking at what your actual spend is. And so on occasion, we'll actually send you a letter and say, hey, we looked at this contract, had an 18% goal, your company is at 8%. We're looking at your utilization schedule. It says you should probably be about 10% at this point. We want to know what's going on, if this is still a true and accurate reflection, and if you feel you're going to meet the goal by the end of the contract. If not, give us an updated utilization schedule and say, hey, you know, that schedule's off. Here we are now. Here's where we think we're going to be. Also, promptly respond to any inquiries from the city. And it's not just OBO asking you about the gold credit subs, because a couple of years ago, we pushed this challenge to the departments that, you know, this is your project and OBO's project, and we both are trying to find answers to the questions about your gold credit and whether or not you have a plan to meet the goal. So we're looking for you to respond to, be it OBO or the department, about what's happening with your goal. We're looking for you to talk about that. We're looking for you to respond to us. And then one of the other things is to ensure that the gold credit subs that you're using, that they are performing a commercially useful function. We'll talk about commercially useful function a little more in a couple other slides, but it's really making sure that the subs that you list do the work that you advertise that they will do on the project. Other things you can look at is provide information that's factually inaccurate and free of material misrepresentation. Tell us the truth. We're here to help you. We're from the government. We're here to help you. So tell us the truth. We'll try to help you. Okay? Attend all meetings and mediation hearings as requested by the city. And then notify us if change orders affect your MBE subs. Part of the whole process is making sure that when you know that something's going to affect your MBE participation, contact OBO, contact your compliance officer, let them provide guidance to you on how to move forward now that you've given us that information. You talk to the department all the time about change orders. You're not talking to OBO about change orders. So just because you're talking to the department about a change order and they're authorizing you to do that, we and OBO may not necessarily know. So let us know that here's a change order that's going to affect our MWBE participation. And if the department is not reaching out to us about that, we'll circle back and get them on the wagon so that they know it's going to affect the MBE participation, and that we're all on the same page as far as that's concerned. Okay? So at the end of the contract, we're going to assess your efforts to meet the MBE goals. It's always done at the end of the contract. The reason why we do it at the end of the contract is because at that point, the department is telling us there are no more opportunities for MWBE participation on this contract. And so at the end of the contract, that's when we're looking for you to tell us, that's when we're looking for you to show us all your efforts. Failure to make good faith efforts at the end of the contract, when you turn in your final documents, failure to make that could result in an unsatisfactory rating, and an unsatisfactory rating gets reviewed by City Council. It could impact your ability to get future contracts, because part of not meeting the goal and getting an unsatisfactory rating means that you could possibly be sanctioned. I mean, there's a process to appeal it, but that you could possibly be sanctioned, and that sanction may take away your ability to bid on contracts for a time. And we don't want you to get into that point. We don't want you to get into that point, so that's why we're trying to explain to you the things you can do with your good faith efforts at the end of the contract to help us avoid that. But unsatisfactory ratings are reviewed by City Council and the mayor, and it definitely can impact your ability to get a future contract. Okay. How do you document all your good faith efforts? They provided great examples up front about, Latanya and Monica provided great examples up front about documenting your efforts. So I'm just going to go through them briefly. Document all the efforts you make to comply with the goal. Anything you do to try to find participation but are unable to, document that. So if you make a phone call to somebody about working on your project for MBE participation, you should be documenting that on your phone, on your call log or something. One of the most sincerest forms that we see of that you really want to use those subs that you listed on your contract originally is for you to execute a subcontract agreement with them. That shows me that you were intending to use that sub to meet the goal. So if one of the things we'll look at, did you execute a subcontract agreement with those subs? Keep a log of all the efforts you make throughout the course. If something happens on the project that takes away your sub's ability to work or takes away your ability to use that sub in that instance, document those things, because at the end of the contract, you can submit that as part of your efforts, and we can review those along with the departments to see if that is in itself one of those things that we need to be looking at as far as your good faith effort. Again, contact OBO for assistance. Each of your projects, you have an assigned compliance officer that's working with you, reviewing those contracts to see if you're making the goal. If at any point in the contract you're having problems meeting the goal, please contact them and let them provide you with guidance on how to make sure you stay compliant with the goals. When possible, provide the subcontractors with advance notice. A sub doesn't want to know that they have to start work on Friday if they haven't heard from you in 4 months. You need to tell them when you expect them to start so that they have a way to plan their schedules and to plan their staff so that they can support you on your goal efforts. So it's just, excuse me, it's just like providing them additional notice, providing them with notice that you're going to need them at a certain point. Okay? Common observations we see from my compliance officer, common observations we see as it relates to your good faith effort or failure to provide the good faith efforts. We see nobody responds to our letters. We send you letters and we say what's happening with your goal. We don't get a response back. We make phone calls. We don't get phone calls back. But that's all documentation of your sincere effort to meet the goal when you respond back to us. You don't execute a subcontract agreement with these subs. You list MBEs for gold credit without notifying the subcontractor. We still see that today where you actually have a company that you list on your gold credit sub, list as a gold credit sub, and one of the things that we do, we actually send a letter to those gold credit subs that saying this prime says they contacted you and they want to use you on this contract. We get calls all the time. Never heard of that company. Could be they're talking to your estimator, but a lot of times they're saying, we never had any discussion with that company about working on this contract. And so we also have failure to submit deviation requests. You use subs all the time on your projects, gold credit subs, subs that are actually certified with the city as an MW or SBE. You never ask for gold credit. You never do a deviation to say, hey, I'm using this sub, I want their dollars to count toward my goal. That helps you. And then one of the other things is you fail to report the payment. You don't report your payments made to your MBE subs or to any of your subs. And so at the end of the project, when we're trying to close the project, we don't see any payments. We're saying you got goose eggs for MBE participation. And you know it's better, but we don't know. And that's one of those things that we see that you need to work on. You self-perform work, but we actually see primes that are actually self-performing work that's designated for your subs. So when you turn in your bids, you actually tell us the subs that you're going to be using for gold credit. You identify to us the work that they're going to be performing. We expect that those subs are going to be the only one that perform that work. And if something happens where you end up having to perform that work, you need to be talking to OBO about why you're doing that and what's happening so that we can provide you with guidance to help you stay compliant. And then failure to understand how the MBEs will perform on the contract. So you actually tell us on your 600 documents, you actually tell us that this company is going to perform, this company is going to provide pipe or trucking or concrete. And you tell us that you tell us the companies that are going to provide those services, we're looking for those companies to provide those services. What normally happens is, and we'll talk about this is your subcontractors that you're bringing to our projects, your subcontractors are using other subcontractors. Those subcontractors may not be certified, okay? So when your subcontractors use other non-certified subcontractors, we can't give you credit for those dollars that your subcontractors sub out to a firm that is not certified. I know you had the original agreement with the sub to say, we want you to provide concrete or pipe or trucking, and you probably didn't know that your subcontractor was actually going to bring some other people to help them on the contract, but that's your responsibility. We ask you to push those same requirements down to your subs that we tell you. We tell you that we want to know everybody that works on our project, okay? So if you bring somebody to our project, we're asking you, we tell you in the pre-construction meeting, let us know who they are because we want to check them out to make sure that they are not debarred, to make sure that that we have all their information so that we can track and make sure that when we pay you, you pay them. So anything that we're asking you to do, we're asking you have to make sure you include that information in your subcontract agreements for your subs, that if they're going to bring anybody else to your project, that they're going to also include that same language and notify us in advance, just like you would. So we see a lot of primes failing to know how their subs will actually perform and not understanding the impact of their MBE gold credit subs subcontracting to non-MBE gold credit subs. And then failure to notify us promptly of any changes that will affect your utilization. So when you find out, we're expecting you to tell us so that we can provide you with guidance on how to stay compliant under those terms, okay? Okay, commercial useful function. Now, I guess about 3 or 4 months ago, we actually went back and revisited the commercial useful function process to look at, to make sure that commercial useful function basically is where your subs perform as they say they're going to perform. And I'll give you some examples. Like if you have a trucking company that you're bringing to our project, that trucking company is providing trucks to our project, their own trucks, and not basically subbing all the work out to another trucking firm or using more owner-operators than they're using their own trucks. With trucking, we actually started this process. We actually kind of adopted the same process that the feds use on trucking, where for every one truck that your certified sub brings to the project, we allow them to use one owner-operator truck, and that is a truck that is a person who owns and drives their truck. They show up on your subcontractor's payroll, and that's the only truck they're driving and operating, the truck that they bring to their project. And so that affects you. If you have a company that has 6 trucks and you need 60 trucks for this project, and they can only bring you 6 trucks a day, and you need 12, 14 trucks a day, you're probably not going to get full credit for that trucking firm, because in order to meet your needs, they're probably going to have to bring in another trucking firm or more owner-operators than what's allowable in order for them to get full credit for their work. Okay. Also, under the commercial useful function, all of our certified firms are certified in certain areas. So, and I use this example: if you're a hot dog vendor and you're on our construction contract, if we don't have opportunities for hot dog vendors on that construction contract, you're probably not going to be able to get credit for their work. Now, the hot dog vendor is certified with the city, so what if you say they're going to do our concrete for us? Well, where are they going to get the concrete from? So we're going to kind of trace back to trace the origin back. That hot dog vendor isn't certified with the city to provide concrete, and so even though they're certified, they're not certified in that area. You're not going to get credit towards your goal. So you need to be aware of how your subs perform on our projects as far as the goal is concerned, as far as goal credit. Prime contractors only get credit when the MBE performs a commercially useful function. And again, please let's not confuse the fact that they are certified with a commercially useful function. Again, certified means that we have certified them with the city and they've been designated as a minority, woman, small or disadvantaged business enterprise. It doesn't mean that they've been certified in a certain area. And so we're looking more commercially useful function. We're looking more at, are they certified in the areas that you plan on using them to meet the goal? Okay. So we'll talk about some of those things, some of those challenges that we know you're going to see going forward about subs that you're using on our projects. Commercially useful function and goal credit. A subcontractor performs specific work with their own forces. Subcontractors can actually use non-certified firms to provide them with material, but as long as they install the material, then they would get full credit, okay? So subcontractors are a different breed, but again, we also have to watch how they perform to make sure they do the work that they're listed, and if they're bringing materials from a non-MBE, that they're actually installing that material. So now let's talk about the suppliers. Here's where we're going to have our biggest opportunity as far as meeting the goal and making sure you're compliant. And we want to work with you to make sure this is happening. Suppliers there are like 7 distinct functions that suppliers must do in order to get credit on your contract. And so I think we've got them listed. I don't know if I can count right. A through G is 7 or 8, not sure. But number 1, they must negotiate price, okay? So do your suppliers negotiate price on your contracts? Number 2, they must determine the quality and quantity. So we're looking for, do your suppliers determine quality and quantity? C, order the materials. D, show that the invoice is in the certified firm's name. E, pay for the material itself. Control delivery and be certified to provide supplies. What we're seeing, we've been doing, I think we have really ramped up the amount of commercially useful function audits we have been performing on your gold credit subcontractors. We're not seeing a lot of this, and so we're sending you letters. When we find out, we're sending you letters saying, hey, we looked at this company. We believe that you're not going to get full credit for the dollars you spend with them towards your goal. And we're telling you this because we're looking at those A through G items and saying we're finding evidence that says they are not providing, they are not behaving in those manners. Okay. And then we talked about truckers earlier. Again, truckers is basically a 1-to-1 ratio. A trucker can come to the project, and then they have owner-operator. They can use one owner-operator for every truck that they own, that they employ somebody to bring to the project. And so those things will affect your MBE or gold credit on the projects. So now we've told you all this stuff about the goal and the gold credit, and we're trying to evaluate your gold credit. And now we want to talk about, now that at the end of the project, when there's no more opportunity for MBE participation, our office is tasked with evaluating whether or not you met the goal, either through getting us the number we're looking for or your good faith efforts. The compliance officers that are assigned to your project are actually gathering all that documentation, and they're putting it together, a recommendation that we're going to be giving, that we would actually give to, they would actually give to myself and the assistant director to say, we believe their good faith efforts were sufficient, or we believe that efforts that they were unsatisfactory, and then we will actually send a letter to you saying that based on our evaluation, your rating is this. And then we'll give you 14 days to respond. If we don't hear back from you in 14 days, we assume you agree with us. But if there's some other information that you feel we do not have, that's your chance to turn it in to us to say, hey, here's some other factors that you need to consider, so that before you make that decision, here's some other factors you need to consider. You can turn that information in. You know, LaTanya and Monica talked about providing that information, your good faith efforts documentation, with your bid. Well, when we send you this letter saying that we've evaluated your efforts, if we haven't received your good faith efforts by that point, we're assuming that because we tell you at the pre-construction meeting that, hey, gather all your good faith efforts, and when no opportunity exists or when the contract ends, submit that to us so that we can evaluate that before we make that decision. We would rather you send your good faith efforts in to us before we make that decision, but if we don't have them, we will make that evaluation, we will make that decision. We will send you a letter, certified mail, saying, here's how we believe your company is evaluated on this project. We will give you 14 days. If you haven't provided us with your good faith efforts documentation at that point, that's the perfect chance for you to try to get that back to us within that time period so that we can look at it again. And if look at it for the first time, if you haven't given it to us previously, and that way we can evaluate it. And if your efforts are sufficient, we're going to be able to give you a satisfactory rating. But you have to look at all the components that we gave you. Okay? Okay, with that, I will turn it back over to the Assistant Director.
Thank you so much, team. Okay, I do think it's really important. I just want to emphasize this one more time that Morris mentioned regarding commercial use of function, because that significantly affects the credit that we can give you for your sub's performance. Certification alone does not equal 100% credit. We're looking at how that individual certified firm performs on that particular project. And just because a certified firm performed in a particular way on one project, we're not assuming that they're going to perform in the same way on every project. So that is what assessing commercial useful function involves. Are they certified in the NAICS code in which they're actually performing? And in order to receive 100% credit, are they actually performing in the way that was described on this slide as far as suppliers were concerned? If suppliers are not meeting those 7 requirements for 100% credit to the prime, we're actually likely going to just assess a broker's fee in that situation if they're not meeting those 7 requirements. So I know the goal for contractors is 100% credit for each and every certified firm that's participating on your project. So it's really important to pay attention to exactly how these firms are actually performing. And so that's the last piece.